hello. We have problems with the internet. So at the moment we are on, but we don't know for how long we'll be on. Apologies upfront, all around. And fingers crossed, that's all we can say. Hello, hello. Welcome to
Hello.
this technically challenged practical awakening with Di and Anjali today. Why is meditation not leading to awakening? Hi, Angie. How are you?
Hi, Di. How are you doing? I just want to remind subscribers to hit the like button. It helps us a lot if you're interested in this subject. And if you're interested in making a donation to the channel, please do so. We encourage that. The link is below.
Now, let's start with our usual 5 minute or approximately 5 minutes preparation for entering the stream or entering the space, whichever way you feel like it. Eyes open, eyes closed. Finding the breath. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. We were just reminded by a viewer that video is a very poor quality. So can you please let us know if the sound is good in whether you think that there is any point in going on, or is it too poor quality to actually stay with it? I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. Our today's topic is about meditation and enlightenment or awakening. Is meditation leading to awakening? Is it possible that meditation does not lead to awakening, but it just stays just that, meditation? And what are the things about meditation that actually almost even prevent you from getting enlightened, if that's even possible, if that's even a possibility? Thank you. Awaken Abundant, thanks. That was big help. We just got a thumbs up to continue with the video, Angie. The sound is
Mm.
good. The video is not that great. The picture is not that great, but we're on and we'll keep on. Now, meditation, I think it's a huge subject for everyone who is a spiritual seeker. Because most of the spiritual seekers actually start their path. And the first instruction is probably meditation. Now, Angie, I will pass it on to you because, as I always said, meditation is not something that I can actually talk about because I was never a meditator. I never found it comfortable or natural, or it was just something I had to force on myself and I just gave up very quickly. So please, Angie, can you just talk a bit about that aspect, about meditation, about how people meditate, if there is, we can say, like how most people meditate or how you meditate? Please.
Yeah. I can't speak for how everybody meditates. I mean, I can only probably speak for myself and what little reading I've done. I think largely for me, it's about just finding a focal point and being absorbed with that point while following the breath, and the body is perfectly still. So I was taught a long time ago in my teen years, first to still the body, and then to work with the breath so it's even and smooth and without jerks and no pauses, at the top of the cycle and the bottom. So, and then from that, it was finding a focal point for the mind to rest on while the breath continues, and then the mantra continues over that top, and the thoughts, they still come by for sure, but there's great distance between them. And then it feels like they don't even come by. You're just resting, and for me, at least, it's just resting in a perfect space of like contentment, peace. Um, but my issue has always been, as I've told you, Di, that once I am done with meditation and I go to work or, go to the store to do shopping, then my mind has trouble finding that space again. I mean, there's a residual runoff after that for an hour or two or whatever, and it certainly helps frame my day, but there is not, I feel like my meditation doesn't have traction throughout the day. I feel like there's not really progress in that way. Um, so yeah, I
So you
don't.
would have to repeat it. You would have to repeat it like physically
It
to,
would have to be
get enough.
repeated, but you have to be in like a quiet space again, and you're pulling away from like the world, and then you're like focusing, and it just is not a realistic way to be in the world unless you're in a monastery or ashram or something. Um, so yeah, when I met you, I was very excited because we've been talking more about like using this repeatedly, focusing on the breath, not up here. It's not about the mind looking, witnessing the thoughts that are coming through. I mean, you do that. I'm very good at that. You can stand back and witness that. But it's about like just following the breath and with a mantra. I mean, it all becomes different. I can sit at work and do this. Because it's a physical function that I'm following. I don't know. This just occurred to me actually this morning when I witness thoughts, it's very much a mental game for me. So I'm still plugged in up here. There's still activity going on up here, even though I'm standing as a witness. And when I pull down
You
here,
have to be, Angie.
right, when I find this space, it's just the breath. The body is breathing itself.
That is absolutely, absolutely what it's about from my point of view, the way I experience it. What you just said now, exactly that. Because witnessing is a mental process. You cannot witness anything, if you're not mentally engaged. There is no way. I mean, that's
Mm,
witnessing. It's mental engagement. And what we do is we actually even explicitly make these two different sides. One is the side that is witnessing, and the other side is what is witnessed. You know what I mean?
mm,
And then a lot of people, even during my years of videos, were asking me this question, like, where is the whatever witness, or what is witnessing, or who is, I never even stumble into that. To me, it's just, what is this about? There is no witness, and there is no witness, and there is nothing, because there is no mental processing. But
right.
when you set up like that with meditation, to witness, to observe, to whatever, you are just mentally processing. It is just not possible, Angie, doing this in any other way but through the thoughts, through the mental processing. It's not possible.
Mm,
And you see, you explained that really well, Angie. That's why I'm so particular about the breath. It starts with the breath. You see, the body is breathing. You're not, you are not in any way making your breath this or that, or continuous or long or short, or you know what I mean, or smooth or
right.
whatever. You are not to interfere with your breath in any way, because that is mental processing to interference with the breath. The body breathes all the time. We don't breathe, the body breathes. And what do? We just find the breath and
Mm,
just follow that breath. We don't do anything. There is no doing, there is no nothing. There is no doer, there is no doing. Am I clear, Angie, with
yeah.
what I'm saying now?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And there is no division. There is no witness, or whatever. uh, I even lose myself in that mental processing, but obviously there is a witness and witnessed, or whatever. There is no division. There is a breath, and the breath is automatic. The body is breathing. It's part of the body function, as you said before, Angie. And then we just couple that with the mantra, because it helps to fill the space.
Mm,
And then there is this active part, Angie, when we realize that we've plastered onto the fort, we move into the fort, straight into the fort. There is a movement straight into the fort, looking straight into the fort, moving straight into the fort, which disintegrates the fort. The fort is empty. And by that movement straight into it, you see the thought disappear. There is an actual disappearance of the thought. It's an act of moving into the thought with the breath through the chest.
That is where, if you could say some more words, that's where I get stuck actually. So I've had a charged week. A couple of things is that I owe the government an extraordinary amount of money. So I'm broke. I'm going to be broke. So that brings up a lot of sadness, a lot of like tangles of everything for me. So I was feeling it, of course, like physically, and there's a lot of thoughts, and I'm in some ways I'm kind of able to watch them last night. Um, and when I get into the breath space, I can find a reasonable amount of peace with it. But I was trying to do, as you were saying, is to watch the thought, like move right into it, and it just brings up an
Yeah,
extraordinary tears, like just like it feels like the disappearance of me, like as I conceived of me, all these ideas that like little
yes, that's
ornaments on
what
a
it is.
Christmas tree,
And
and they're all like being ripped off.
that's what it is. That's what it is. I have no me. I have no I. It's completely disappeared. I would never, ever, ever want it back. Ever. If they
Mhm.
now gift it to me and they say, we'll give you your eye back and we'll give you $50 million on top, please just go away. Okay?
Mm,
I don't want it. I don't want it. I live on my own in the bush. I have no dog. I have nothing. And I have no fear. You see what I mean? I have no eyes, so I have no fear. I never think that something is going to happen to me. I never think that something's not quite right because I'm here and there is nothing and there is no one and all sorts of things, all sorts of, things that people can think of that can happen to a person like that. And all that. There is no I, there is no fear, there is nothing in connection with it. There is just this beautiful peace and a sense of being plugged in a vibration. There is no,
mm,
you see, this fear of not having an eye, this is mental processing, aren't you? This got nothing to do with anything. This is just the thoughts.
right.
Being without eyes is the best thing that can ever possibly happen to you. And this is just a story for you, Angie. I understand that, but I'm just speaking from the place of where there is no eye. I
Mm,
just want to point that out. And I was in a place with a very strong eye. My eye was very gigantic, always very gigantic. And even the thought of not having this eye one day would absolutely get me almost a panic attack because that was quite
mm,
inconceivable that this gigantic eye will one day not be. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
but, oh, thank God it's not. I just want to say, I had a panic attack in the old days just to possibly even think that this, my beautiful, so precious eye, that was just so huge, Angie. Believe
Hmm.
me when I say that. Um, I wasn't exactly a bully, but I was a domineering person wherever I went. You know what I mean? Like my eye was just huge, just huge. And it was a huge burden. I'd
Mm.
never thought of it that way. It was a huge burden. The bigger the eye, the bigger the burden.
True.
And I'm just saying that I just want people to understand that I am coming from a space of huge eye and huge, very precious and very coveted and very safeguarded in many, many ways. It was my biggest possession was my eye, Angie. That was really
Mm.
everything. I'm so proud of it. I really was.
I just
And
hadn't
not in a physical.
realized. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm. I just want to say this eye. I wasn't a material person even then, and I wasn't, that hooked up on my image or anything like. I mean, physical, but as everything else, is all the thoughts, is all the, that was my
Right.
God, you know,
Yeah.
treasure number one, and two, and three, and 10, and 100. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Oh, you know.
What I find
So I
interesting
know
though
this is.
is just I had not realized all the tentacles, I guess, that were attached to this eye for me. You know, it was sort of a heady game so far, but now this year there's things that are being pulled away from me, and I see how the attachment is, how strong that attachment is, and how I shape this eye based on like having a certain money flow or having a certain amount that is a reserve in the bank or whatever it is, you know, having a certain amount of education, having a certain amount of all these things as a base, and how much I've attached to all of that, all of those threads. And so now when they're
Yeah.
falling away, it's very painful, of course, to watch, but I know that's just the attachment speaking.
But you see, Angie, I just want to say this now. We're going back with this exactly what you're saying now, and you said it before a few times, and that caught my attention. You see this word watch. Okay. You're watching your thoughts, you're watching these
Mm,
tentacles. There is no watching, Angie. There is no watching. There is no watching. When you're in the space, by watching, there is a one who watches, and then there is the thing that
mm,
you watch. There is always this. There is no watching. All is in the space is all one. You see, when you say all this watching and all this, watching happens up here, and you watching cannot happen down here. There is
right.
no way to watch through the chest with the vibration and with the. There is no way. Whenever you're watching, you're up here. There is no other way you can watch. Okay, let's make this
Mm,
clear. And that's why the watching, the observing, the watching is just a different word for observing.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, in a way, it's just the same. So whenever you find yourself watching or observing, you try and get down into the chest area with the breath, just finding the breath, following the breath and the mantra. Because when you do that, even for a minute or half a minute, in that half a minute, there is nothing, Angie. There is no observer, there is no observing, there is nothing. There is just that. And that vibration that you get through the chest area is actually the one that disappears the force, disintegrates the force, disintegrates the I as a self.
So I was just feeling into that space with that thought, and I can feel the tears coming already. And that's why I stay up here because it's kind of safe. You know, I can watch and it's like, okay, that's just a thought. I'm going to watch that, and I can already feel them drying up because I can get into that space. And like right down here, when I move back down here, it's like
But can you actually, what do you experience? Can you
it
experience the
feels like it's
charge and the
crushing.
vibration?
I can feel it when I sit in a different space. Like I can move to observing and realize it's in a thought. Like those are thoughts, those are attachments. And then if I move back down here, then sometimes I can retain that thought space and like it's not a thought space. It's a witness, I guess. It's a witness that we were talking about at the beginning, but it gives me a distance enough so that when I move down here, I can find that space. It does feel like an electrical charge when I'm in a calm space. But when I was just focusing on that thought, that attachment, I could just feel everything. Like it feels like there's enormous pressure on here when I think of that thought.
So yeah, so okay, you start with the breathing and finding the breath and the mantra. Are you doing that together with the thought, being present?
The thought, I mean, it's less than a day old, this sort of thing that came up, this like the fact that I'm not going to have any money. So it feels still really tight. I feel my whole body is kind of like when the thought comes up today, it would just pass by, but I could feel it in my body, like right in the solar
Yeah,
plexus. It
but it
feels like
passes. It
it
passes.
does, and I just like
It
it.
doesn't stay.
Right. Unless I start to perseverate on it, which I have not, and it's like, okay, and I just find the breath again, and I try to find that space. But generally, there's a certain amount of tears that come with it, and I figure like what I've noticed, what I've witnessed before is that there's a certain runoff of tears, and when the emotions are done, then I can find the space much easier. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So you can, when you're at home, obviously not at work, but when you're at home, you can almost risk this crying for a certain amount of time.
mm,
Obviously not at work, but let's say at home when you're sort of, because sooner or later they dry out.
they do, and actually, I get to a space where I feel like I'm so distant from myself. It's almost funny. Like 20 years from now, I'll just be laughing probably at this. I mean, it's just so like, does this even matter? People live with less money than I've had, and they live just fine, and they can be happy. I think Di's frozen. Hmm. We may have lost her, friends. Di, I can't. You have no audio and no video if you can hear me.